It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is time to talk college football. Matt Murschel joins us, UCF and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
We are doing well. How are the UCF Knights and you doing? And is it the same, or is it different?
I think they're doing well. I mean, they just wrapped up spring camp a little later than normal, but they had a pretty good camp. They've brought in 41 newcomers in year two of Scott Frost, and they think they've got a pretty good group here now. You know, now that Scott's had another year under his belt, they feel like they've brought in enough experience and talent that they can help them maybe make that jump up into being bowl eligible from where they were last year.
Yeah, I went and listened to his post-spring wrap, and he was talking about how just a more comfortable second year, and it makes sense that he would have more comfortability going into his second stint, second year. And you talk about those 41 transfers, and I'm thinking that's probably led by the quarterback from James Madison, Barnett, who was a Sun Belt Player of the Year, 2-year starter. Some decent stats, 58% on the completion, but ran for almost 600 yards. I assume he didn't follow Chesney to UCLA because they already have a quarterback established there for the Bruins, and so Barnett decides to go south to UCF. I know he was limited in spring, and Frost was talking about watching him throw. But how much of the success is going to be riding on his ability to be successful this season?
Yeah, I think a lot of it. You know, you look at the fact that he's their cornerstone piece to this transfer portal class. You know, he was the guy that they brought in early on, and they figured that would help them kind of start to add some pieces around him. Because once you've got a talented quarterback in, it's easier to convince receivers and running backs and offensive linemen, you know, to kind of sign with your team because, you know, you've got a guy now who's in place and who's been to the college football playoff last year. He fits in well what UCF wants to do offensively. He can throw the football, but he's also got mobility, which allows him to, like, you know, get out of the pocket and make some plays. And the stability at quarterback is something that UCF really needed to focus on in the offseason because you look at what happened last year. They had 4 different quarterbacks who basically, you know, saw time on the field. The year before that, they had 4 different quarterbacks who saw time on the field. They need to get that stability. They need to get the number one guy out there playing the majority of the snaps. And that way, I think that would help the offense, you know, kind of do more than they would expect them to.
Wide receiver Josh Derry transfers in from Monmouth. How much faith do they have? Undersized, I get why he wasn't recruited heavily. He's 5'9", 182 pounds listed at. Has he proved enough, and how did he look in spring ball? Does he match up against bigger players?
Oh, yeah, he's done an amazing job in spring ball. I think every player we've spoken with has talked about Josh Derry and his abilities, you know, to make plays, to get separation from defender. You know, he's a guy that, like you said, he has a little undersized, but has found a way to still, you know, make those kind of plays. He's a playmaking ability. And then there's his work ethic. You know, this is the guy that comes into UCF. He's every morning at 6 a.m. He's in the practice field, you know, working out. And that kind of mentality has started to carry over to younger players, to other receivers on the team. Now they're joining him at 6 a.m., trying to continue to go out there and work hard and try to find a way to get better. And that's something that you want. So they feel like Derry's going to be a big piece of what they're going to do. I mean, Dwayne Thomas Jr. is still the number one guy, and Wade Charles is going to be number two. But I think Josh Derry is that third, slot receiver guy who can really kind of maybe, be impressive at times and really help them kind of, spread open the field a little bit more.
All right, well, Dwayne Thomas is a small guy, too. I think he's only like 5'8", but I've had enough of the small guys. I want to talk about the big guys. And you want to talk about the big guys for the UCF team. It starts, and I can almost argue it ends, with Horace Lockett, doesn't it?
Yeah, Horace Lockett's a big part of what they want to do defensively. He's the guy that steps in the tackle spot. He was banged up last year and didn't get to play most of the season. But he's a guy that they really believe can be the heart and soul of that, defensive line, especially when you think about the fact that Malachi Lawrence and Nigel Kelly, your two ends, are gone to the NFL. You need a guy to step up and be the man. And he flirted with the transfer portal during the offseason, and there was some thought that he might leave, but he decided to come back, and it's a big part of what they want to do at the line. They brought in a lot of transfers. They got a few players that they think are going to come back and be contributors, but Horace is going to be the guy in the middle, I think, that's going to be able to give them that push up front, because they need to continue to carry and try to get takeaways and try to be disruptive in the backfield, and I think he's going to be a big part of that.
On college football's all-name team, I expect to find Sincere Edwards. However, he did not get to practice. There were a lot of guys held out. How are all these guys going to be back? Is Sincere going to be back? Because I love that name. And how big an impact are these guys? And if they're not there, how big a problem is it? Because the list, I'm reading a spring football story here, the list of guys held out is pretty long.
Yeah, I think some of that, these guys are expected to be back. I think some of that is, these guys were banged up coming off of last year and just needed time to get themselves back into the swing of things. Scott Frost made a really good kind of point about saying these are financial investments now. We've made investments into these players, and we can't just go throw them out there and something happens and they get banged up or hurt. Now we've lost on that investment. So I think, that's kind of the mentality they've had is yeah, sure, spring is important, but some of these guys is year 2, year 3, or whatever with the program. And, it's a chance for them to maybe rest up a little bit. They've had a lot of snaps over their careers, and it's a chance just to kind of get them rested up and get them up to speed. I think more importantly for them, it's just building that chemistry, building, what they're trying to build there with the culture. And a lot of the players we spoke with that's been a big part of that. These guys have really kind of bonded and feel like this is a good, close group.
Bringing back Lewis Carter, linebacker, leading tackler. We talked about Horace Lockett, 6'6", 355 up the middle there. I think at the linebacker spot, you'd point to Carter as being an impact player.
Yeah, Carter's another big piece of their defense bringing back. He's a guy that really, was the general out on the field, during the defense. And so he's a guy that they expect to continue to play that role. They brought some pieces around him through the transfer portal that's going to help him out. They've got a secondary that's got a lot of experience returning, a lot of returners coming back. So the secondary is going to be strong, but they need to get the middle of that defense to be just as tough as the rest of it, because they're going to have to find a way to slow down Big 12 teams. And that's something that they struggle with at times. That they would get behind and then they'd have to find a way to kind of catch up. And that's not really what this team is kind of designed for. So they need guys like Carter to continue to grow and evolve. And I think that was a huge addition in the offseason. That was someone that basically they could keep having come back.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
When Frost was there the first time, the pitch was, hey, this is a program that's rising. There's so much talent in Florida. Some of these guys are going to want to stay home or close to home and play, and it worked. But now it's all about NIL. Is the vibe completely different? Are the challenges? Is it almost like even though he has his old job back, he's got a brand new job?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that was the biggest challenge that Frost faced last year was, last time he had been a head coach, transfer portal was nowhere near as competitive as it was now. And NIL wasn't nearly as bad as it was now. And neither was revenue share. So he was trying to deal with that on the fly and figure out how to get these guys to come back and want to be a part of something. He tells the story that, the moment that he gave his introductory press conference, he leaves the stage and he goes to his office and there's two kids standing outside with their agents and basically asking him for more money. And Scott said, I don't even know who these guys were. I didn't even look at the roster to that point. It had been like, and you got guys already demanding more money. So I think they've done a good job in the off season. They added a general manager in Trent Mossberger, and they've added a couple other pieces to where they've kind of built a system in place now that'll help with the NIL, with revenue sharing, those kind of situations. So they can kind of be competitive and try to get the kind of players they need to get and fit the needs that they really need to have.
They got a pretty good tight end in Dylan Wade. I think he led the team in terms of touchdown receptions. Probably needs some more, but you can argue that he has the potential to be the leading receiver, and he's a really good player.
Yeah, Dylan Wade's going to be a big part of what they do offensively. He was the guy that they were really, when the offseason, when they were looking to try to keep some guys, we talked about Horace Lockett, but Dylan Wade was one of them. Dwayne Thomas was one of them, and to convince those guys to come back for another year, to be able to play, I think that's huge for them. They needed a safety valve, and I think Dylan kind of stepped into a larger role last year, and they feel like he's a guy that can really, he could be that X factor on the offense, and the guy that they can really rely on when maybe things, break down or you need a first down on, a 3rd and 6. He's a guy that can go out there and make that play. And I think that's going to be crucial for them. So Dylan is a guy that I think they feel like is a big part of how, if they're going to have any success this season, he needs to be around.
Frost said that other than defensive end, they're pretty clearly better at every spot. And you see the 5 wins last year, they held opponents to 14 points or less. And in 5 of the losses, they gave up 30 points or more. They lost a couple games in the 20s as well. Do you see the defense as better, and is there an impact guy who's going to make the game easier for everybody else?
Yeah, I think the defense has gotten better. I think that was been the thing that they really wanted to do. They wanted to add some pieces that they felt like could really maybe help take them to the next level. And I think that's something that they're going to need, especially on the road where they really struggled. They needed guys to really step up and make plays, and I think, where they're going to really kind of have some help is, that edge spot. I think they're going to really need some guys to step up there. Isaiah Nixon's a guy that's been around for 4 years. He's going to probably step up in that role left by Malachi Lawrence. And you mentioned Sincere Edwards. I think he's another guy that's going to step up. Ty Bartram is a name that I don't think a lot of people will recognize, but a guy from Harvard who was a captain last year that has just really kind of caught everyone, the coach's eyes, and they really think he's a guy that's going to be a big-time playmaker. He's a safety for them. That's also kind of the captain of the special teams and, really has kind of assumed that leadership role as well. And I think he's a guy that can be someone that could really step up and make some plays. And then, there's some other guys that they feel like that could step up and really be the contributors. But most of those guys, I think, are coming back.
You talk about how it's different the second time around for Frost. I would argue that the biggest difference, NIL is huge for everybody, but for this particular program, it's being in the Big 12.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a big jump from going to the American to the Big 12. And Scott's had experience. Obviously, he was in the Big Ten with Nebraska and understood, as a coach, kind of the challenges of playing tougher teams. But I think where that comes into more effect is, as I mentioned, is the road games. It's being on the road, going to venues, trying to find ways to win games on the road when things are tough. And that's something that they've really struggled with, not just under Frost, but under Gus Malzahn, the previous leadership. They struggled at times on the road. And if they can find a way to win some of those road games, I think they have a better opportunity to try to be a contender in the Big 12. But you can't go on the road and just, look like a totally different team. They've done that a couple times last year where they come off a big win and then they go on the road and look like they just forgotten every way to win. So I think that's going to be the challenge for them is trying to find ways to make sure they can be competitive on the road and win some of those games away from Orlando.
Is bowl eligibility the goal? Is that it? Do they need to compete in the conference because some people have written big checks? What is the goal for Scott Frost this year?
Yeah, I think for sure they need to be bowl eligible would be a huge step for them. I think if they could get to 7 wins, 7 or 8 wins, that would be big. Now, every player we spoke with obviously is telling us they want to win the Big 12 championship. But is that likely? I mean, it just depends on if this team can bond. I think they've got to take steps, and I think the next step is to be bowl eligible and get to 7 or 8 wins, and then you can kind of see where you can kind of build some momentum off that. If they don't do that, if they struggle, if they, finish 5 and 7 again or worse, I think then the pressure starts to mount a little bit for Scott because, it's the idea that, listen, yes, you had lightning, you caught lightning in a bottle, so to speak, when you won in 2017, but you're going to have to find a way to do that now. And you got to find a way to be better at it. And he's got the tools now. There shouldn't be any reason why they can't.
Well, man, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, and we will keep our eye on UCF.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Matt Murschel joining us, UCF and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. BYU is at UCF October 24th. Utah and Texas Tech miss UCF, so Houston is their big road game. They're largely playing teams who were in the bottom of the league last year. Some of those teams might bounce back, but the door is open for those guys.
It's flung right open. Everybody thinking bowl eligibility. I can remember being down in Vegas at the Mountain West Conference Media in the time where the Mexico Lobos were just awful, and I think they were 1-11, and me and Ben Bagley were doing the show, and right to our left was the New Mexico people. Mm-hmm. You would have thought it was a friggin' Ohio State, man.
Every time you took your headsets off and listen, they're just pumping them up, man. Here come the Lobos, look out.
Oh, bowl eligibility, yeah, they're a contender. I'm like, guys, man, no.
UCF went 3-0 in non-conference last year, then 2-7 in the league and missed the bowl eligible. And one of their 2 wins was Oklahoma State, which was obviously a complete disaster. And they get to play Oklahoma State for one of their 4 road games. Yeah, but Oklahoma
State has gotten a huge influx of transfers.
Of North Texas guys.
And a lot of programs, including the Hammer, has picked them in the top half of the conference.
To be bowl eligible.
The Hammer.
The Hammer. That's PK's nickname for John Wilner at the San Jose Mercury News, if you're not following along.
Well, you're right, for KSL.com. What do you mean the San Jose Mercury News?
I believe it's
KSL.com.
It is syndicated
That's
here.
Nobody cares that he writes for San Jose. It's KSL.com.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's where he writes. We're localizing it. And they pick it up. But the Hammer's high on Oklahoma State.
Right.
Yeah.
They brought in a coach from North Texas and a lot of players.
And their
North
quarterback,
Texas had a good team.
They're looking at him as an NFL guy. So that there's been other teams that have had dramatic turnarounds. So I wouldn't look at Oklahoma State as some patsy as they have been the last couple of years, bizarrely.
Should be time for a bounce back.
Yeah.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good night's sleep.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.